Hello again, students. This is Mr. Allen. This time I'm going to be walking you through a basic presentation of nouns, our first part of speech. Okay? Nouns, you're probably familiar with the definition. You'd immediately tell me that they are people, places, things, or ideas. So I like the word objects instead of things, as I've said before, because people are things, places are things, ideas are things. Okay, but it's a good place to start. It's a very simple definition. And nouns are the names we give to these many things. Nouns can be either proper or common. A proper noun names a particular person, place, thing, or idea. Proper nouns are always capitalized. So, a boy named Owen, his name Owen, would be a proper noun. Katie, Major League Baseball, as an organization. Versus common nouns, which are any nouns that do not name a particular person, place, or thing, but more a general category, something a little more generic, like the word boy instead of Owen, or girl rather than Katie. Katie's more specific, particular, girl is more generic, and baseball is certainly more generic than Major League Baseball. Concrete nouns name things that are tangible. That means you can observe them with the senses, so that you can see them, you can touch them, you can hear them, smell, taste, whatever you'd like. Concrete nouns they can be either proper or common, as you'll see in a second. In this case, I used two common ones, table and desk, as examples. Abstract nouns name ideas, conditions, feelings, things that are intangible. That means you can't touch them, you can't smell them, you can't taste them, see them, hear them. Things like love, equality, things that are a little looser, harder to define. I find abstract nouns are the hardest for my students to nail down. So you just have to think. There are many things in this world that we can describe, that we understand conceptually. We just can't physically observe them. But we have names for those things, just like we have names for desks and tables and things like that. We have to have names for them as well. But they're not concrete. We can't touch them. They're harder to observe. So we call them abstract. Here's a quick little chart that illustrates how any given noun will be either proper or common. You can see the left side of the table is all proper and the right side is all common. And you can see that the top rows here are concrete. Every noun will be concrete or abstract. So the top rows are concrete, the bottom rows are abstract. Proper concrete, Thomas. You can certainly observe Thomas, see Thomas. And its proper name, it refers to a specific boy, whereas sure, you could see any boy, observe that boy, but the word boy is a little more generic. It's common rather than proper. James Madison High School is a proper concrete noun. We can observe it. Many of you will be in James Madison High School shortly again, and it's proper in that it's not a generic common high school as we have over here in common concrete. Okay. Proper abstract. These are probably the hardest to generate ideas of yourself. I imagine if I cut you loose and said, tell me about a proper abstract noun, you'd have some trouble coming up with them. But think about something like God. Certainly the Christian concept of God is a specific thing that deserves its proper name, but it's abstract. It's hard to observe. February as a month, kind of hard to observe. A complicated philosophy like Marxism, okay? You can see it in action, but in and of itself, it's going to be abstract, something we can conceptualize, but we can't touch, we can't hold. Common abstract nouns, again, we can't observe them, but they're a little bit more general than these proper ones over here. The whole concept of a deity, of a god. Not the Christian God, but a God in general. Or the concept of a month. The concept of philosophy. You can see I've sort of paralleled them over here. And what you see are the common side of these abstract nouns and not the proper ones. Okay. Moving on, there are a few different ways we can differentiate our nouns. Nouns will always be singular or plural. So singular nouns will refer to one person, place, thing, or idea. Plural nouns will refer to more than one person, place, thing, or idea. So we could have one horse, or we could have horses. We could have a child, or we could have children. so on and so forth. Pretty simple. Nouns can be differentiated by gender. So some nouns are masculine, like uncle, brother, bull, rooster. Some are feminine, like mother, cow, hen, filly. Some are neuter, that means they lack a gender. So a tree, a fishing rod, a closet. And some are indefinite in that they could be masculine, they could be feminine. Titles like president, occupations like a plumber, a doctor, a family role like parent could be used to describe either your father or your mother. Okay, so it's the word parent in and of itself, indefinite, no definite gender. Case will tell us where we'll find these nouns in the sentence. So we have 3 cases. The 2 biggest will be nominative and objective, which we'll go through, and then we'll look at possessives a little bit. The nominative case describes a noun that is used as the subject of a clause. So if you go back to the parts of sentence video, you'll see that the subject is what we are describing in a sentence. We'll also consider nouns in the nominative case if we use a special type of verb called a linking verb. So if I said, let's see, Kyle is a monster. Kyle is my subject, and that's the nominative case, but I'm linking Kyle to another noun, monster, and I would consider monster in the nominative case. This is something we'll get into much, much later, but I just want you to realize that you can have nominative nouns technically on the other side of your verb. We'll come back to that. Objective case. We use the objective case to describe nouns that appear in the predicate. Again, go back to the parts of sentence introduction if you're forgetting what the word predicate means. But objective case nouns are like direct objects, indirect objects, objects of the preposition. So I gave you a couple of examples below. Johnny gave me 2 apples. Johnny's our subject. Simple predicate is that he's giving something. What is he giving? Apples. Those apples are directly receiving the action of the verb gave, so they are our direct object, and yes, they are nouns. Johnny gave me 2 apples. In the second example, me is the recipient of the apples, of what was given. So it's not the direct object, it's not receiving the action of the verb gave, but it is receiving the apples that were given. So we call it the indirect object, one step away. I know this is a little bit ahead of where we are, but it's always good to see. Okay, possessive case. We can use nouns, turn them into possessives to show ownership. So the kitten's toys, Joe's car, the MLB's ruling, company's workers, so on. They function more like adjectives, so we won't have too many questions that deal with them, but it's important to know what they are. Okay, take a few moments here. I'll give you a few minutes. In fact, I'll encourage you to pause the video at this time if you're working along at home, and you can do some practice here. Look at these questions and see if you can identify the answer choice that shows all of the nouns in those 4 sentences. Go ahead and pause. I'm going to switch to the answers. Answers in 3, 2, 1, boom. Then you can see the bowl there. In answer 1, kittens are certainly things, cats are things, and pets. More common term for things like kittens, dogs, whatever, but they're all nouns. So A is the best answer for number 1. Make, that's a verb, so you can't use that, and that shows up in both answers B and C. Make is an action, so it's not a person, place, thing, or idea. Okay, number 2, Terry has a beautiful garden. Well, Terry's a person, so we need Terry in our answer. That'll limit us down to B and C. Beautiful, that's a word that's going to describe a noun. We'll learn about these adjectives. It's an example of an adjective. We'll learn about those soon. But garden, a garden's a thing, so garden has to be our answer. C is the best choice. Number 3, Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water. Well, Jack is a person. Jill is a person. A hill is a thing. A pail is a thing. Water is a thing. So we need all of those in our answer. And we can rule out A and C because fetch is an action. Actions are going to be verbs. Okay, we'll get into verbs a little bit more very soon. Last question. Mr. and Mrs. Ingalls built a little house on the prairie. Well, we need Mr. and Mrs. Ingalls. I mean, they have to be there. The titles that go with them, I mean, I like to think of them together. Mr. Ingalls is a thing. Miss Ingalls is a thing. House is certainly a thing, and prairie is a thing. If you chose B, because it looked real close, I want to point out the word little. Okay, the word little right there is used to describe the house, and words that describe nouns we'll come to know as adjectives very, very soon. Okay, hope this video wasn't too long. I hope you learned a lot. See you soon.